The testing hall stretched across half a kilometer of the Galactic Military Academy's main building. Daehyun stood in line with 47 other cadets, watching the crystalline obelisk that stood in the center of the room. The fear quantifier. Everyone called it simply the machine. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. The crystal structure pulsed with soft blue light, and ancient symbols from the long-dead architect's species flowed across its surface like water. For 300 years, every cadet who wanted to join the coalition military had to face this test. No exceptions. Next cadet, step forward. Instructor Veltha stood beside the machine, her manted body perfectly still. Her species didn't show emotions the way mammals did, but Daehyun had learned to read the small movements of her antennae. Right now they indicated boredom. She had done this thousands of times. A Valkyrian cadet named Hyunwoo walked toward the machine. He was tall, covered in blue scales that shifted color based on his mood. Right now they were turning pale green. Fear. Hyunwoo had been Daehyun's bunkmate for 6 months, and they had developed a friendly rivalry. Hyunwoo thought humans were too soft for military service. He made jokes about Earth's low gravity and weak muscles. The machine opened like a flower. Hyunwoo stepped inside and the crystal petals closed around him. Through the translucent walls, Daehyun could see his bunkmate's shape, but nothing more. The symbols on the machine's surface began moving faster, glowing brighter. "What does it feel like?" whispered a cadet behind Daehyun. She was a Quillen, with feathers instead of hair and eyes that could see in spectrums humans couldn't. "Terror," Daehyun said quietly. "It shows you your worst fear and measures how your body responds." 4 minutes passed. The machine's light faded, and the petals opened. Hyunwoo stumbled out, his scales now dark blue with orange streaks. His breathing was heavy. Instructor Velthas checked her data pad. "Cadet Hyunwoo, 876 units. You pass." Barely. Her antenna twitched in what might have been disappointment. Next. The Aquilin cadet Jiwon went next. She emerged after 3 minutes with a score of 267 units. She looked shaken but composed. Instructor Velthas actually nodded in approval. "Excellent control, Cadet Jiwon." One by one, cadets entered the machine and emerged changed. Some cried, some vomited. One draconian cadet came out screaming and had to be sedated. His score was over 1,100 units, far above safe limits. He failed. Then it was Daehyun's turn. Cadet Daehyun, human, age 22, Earth origin. Instructor Velthas looked at him with all 6 of her eyes. "You understand that only 3 humans have ever taken this test before you?" "Yes, instructor." "They scored between 200 and 400 units. Very low. Your species seems to experience less fear than most." She paused. "Or perhaps you hide it better. We will see. Enter the machine." Daehyun walked forward. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. He had prepared for this moment since arriving at the academy. The machine opened for him, and he stepped inside. The crystal petals closed. For a moment, everything was dark and quiet. Then the test began. Outside the machine, Instructor Velthas watched her datapad. The numbers climbed steadily. 50 units, 100, 200. Normal for a human. Then 300, 400. Still normal range, though higher than previous humans. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Then 3. The numbers kept climbing. 500, 600, 700. Instructor Velthas's antenna straightened in alarm. This was not normal. No human had ever scored this high. She checked the machine systems. Everything appeared to be functioning correctly. 4 minutes. The numbers hit 800 units. Other instructors began gathering around, watching the impossible readings. 5 minutes. 900 units. Cadets in the waiting line started whispering. "Is he okay?" Jiwon asked, stepping closer. "Stay back," Velthas ordered. But she didn't know the answer. Inside the machine, Daehyun's biological readings were extreme but stable. His heart rate was elevated but not dangerous. His neural activity was off the charts. 6 minutes. 1,000 units. This had never happened before. The highest recorded score was 1,200 units, and that cadet had suffered permanent psychological damage. 7 minutes. 1,100 units. Then the machine made a sound it had never made before, a grinding, screeching noise like metal being torn apart. The blue light flickering and turned red. Alarms began blaring throughout the testing hall. Ancient symbols appeared on the machine's surface, written in languages that predated the coalition itself. Red warning messages scrolled across every screen in the room. Error, measurement beyond calibration, error, unknown parameters, error, cannot compute error. The crystal petals shattered open. Daehyun collapsed onto the floor unconscious. Medical teams rushed forward with equipment. Instructor Velthas stared at her datapad. Where Daehyun's score should have been displayed, there was only one word. Null Commander Raxel arrived within minutes. He was a draconian, built like a mountain with scales that looked like armor plating. He had commanded fleets in 3 wars and served as the Academy Director for 20 years. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until today. Explain, he growled, looking at the shattered machine. Instructor Velthas showed him the data. The machine attempted to measure Cadet Daehyun's fear response. After 7 minutes, it exceeded all known parameters and shut down. This has never happened in 300 years of operation. Is the human damaged? Medical scans show he is physically healthy. He appears to be in normal sleep. No brain damage detected, but Commander, the machine itself may be damaged. We need to shut it down completely until we understand what happened. Commander Raxel looked at the unconscious human being loaded onto a medical stretcher. Humans were new to the coalition. Only 15 years since first contact. They were weak by galactic standards. Low-gravity world. No natural weapons. Average intelligence. Nothing special except their strange persistence. Shut down the machine, Raxel ordered. Cancel all remaining tests. I want every scientist on this station examining what happened, and I want guards on the human. No one speaks to him without my authorization. Sir, do you think the human did something to the machine? Velthas asked. I think, Raxel said slowly, that we may have discovered something about humans that we were not prepared for. In 300 years, the fear quantifier has measured thousands of species across millions of individuals. It has never failed. Not once. He turned to leave, then stopped. What was the human experiencing at the end, before the machine failed? Velthas checked her records. Unknown, sir. The machine lost coherence before completing the scenario projection. But based on the pattern, it was escalating through standard fear protocols. Loss of loved ones. Planetary destruction. Species extinction. The machine was about to project the final scenario, which is complete universal entropy, the heat death of everything, absolute eternal void. It is the last test, designed to trigger the deepest existential terror in sentient beings. No cadet has ever reached this stage. The test always ends before then because their minds cannot process that level of existential dread. Commander Raxel was quiet for a long moment. The human reached that stage and the machine broke trying to measure his response? Yes, sir. Get me every piece of data on human psychology we have. Every war they have fought. Every disaster they have survived. I want to know what kind of species can break a machine designed by the architects themselves. He looked at the shattered crystal pieces scattered across the floor. And someone contact Earth. Tell them we need to talk about humanity's evolution immediately. As the medical team carried Daehyun away, Ji-won watched with concern. Hyunwoo stood beside her, his scales now a confused mixture of colors. What could a human possibly fear? Hyunwoo said quietly. That would break a 300-year-old machine? Ji-won had no answer. None of them did. But somewhere in Daehyun's unconscious mind, the answer waited. And when he woke up, everything would change. Daehyun woke up in the medical bay 3 hours after the incident. The first thing he saw was lights. Too many lights. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, all of it beeping and displaying numbers he didn't understand. The second thing he saw was faces. At least a dozen aliens stared at him from various positions around the room. He's awake, someone said. It was a voice he didn't recognize, speaking in Coalition Standard. A doctor approached. He was Quellan with gray skin and 3 arms. Cadet Daehyun. Can you hear me? Do you know where you are? Medical bay, Daehyun said. His throat was dry. What happened? You tell us, said a new voice. This one came from an insectoid creature standing in the corner. Its exoskeleton was black and shiny, and it had too many legs. I am Agent Kathrix, Coalition Intelligence. What do you remember from inside the fear quantifier? Daehyun tried to think. He remembered walking into the machine. He remembered the crystal petals closing, then nothing. Just darkness. I don't remember anything. Nothing. Agent Kathrix moved closer. No images? No feelings? No scenarios? Just darkness. Then I woke up here. Daehyun sat up slowly. His body felt fine, just tired. Did I fail the test? You broke the test, said Commander Raxel, entering the room. Everyone except Agent Kathrix stepped back to give him space. The fear quantifier has operated for 300 years without failure. Until you entered it, Daehyun felt cold despite the warm room. I broke it how? That is what we are trying to understand. Raxel pulled up a chair. It groaned under his weight. Cadet, I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you do anything to the machine? Any technology? Any mental techniques? Anything at all? No, sir. I just walked in like everyone else. Agent Kathrix made a clicking sound. Commander, permission to share classified information with the cadet? Raxel thought for a moment, then nodded. Cadet Daehyun, Agent Kathrix said, you are not the first human to produce an error result from the fear quantifier. You are the 4th. The room went silent. Daehyun stared. 4th? But Instructor Velthus said only 3 humans had taken the test before me. She told you what she was authorized to tell you, Agent Kathrix explained. 7 humans have taken the test total. 3 produced normal results between 2 and 400 units. 4 produced error results. You are the 4th error. What happened to the other 3? Agent Kathrix didn't answer. The silence told Daehyun everything he needed to know. They disappeared from the academy, said a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A young woman stood there wearing a cadet uniform with human features. She had short black hair and hard eyes. I'm Mirai, 2nd-year cadet human. And before you try to remove me, Commander, I have diplomatic protection. Cadet Mirai, this is a restricted area, Raxel growled. Then you should have better security. Mirai walked into the room like she owned it. Daehyun, the 3 humans who got error results were quietly transferred off the academy. No one knows where they went. The Coalition has been suppressing information about human fear responses for 2 years now. That is classified information, Agent Kathrix hissed. Then you shouldn't have put it in files that a 2nd-year cadet can hack. Mirai looked at Daehyun. They're scared of us. They don't understand why the machine fails when we use it. And what they don't understand, they eliminate. This cadet is under arrest for unauthorized access, Agent Kathrix started to say, but Commander Raxel held up one massive hand. Wait. The Draconian looked between the 2 humans. Perhaps we need a different approach. The Coalition's goal is not to eliminate humans. Our goal is to understand. If we do not understand, we cannot ensure the safety of everyone in the academy. He turned to Agent Kathrix. Contact Dr. Youngsu at the research station. If anyone can explain this, it would be him. Agent Kathrix clicked in what might have been annoyance but sent the message. Mirai sat on the edge of Daehyun's bed. You okay? I think so. You really hacked Coalition intelligence? It wasn't that hard. They don't expect humans to understand their encryption. They still think we're primitive. She smiled slightly. They keep underestimating us. Dr. Youngsu arrived 6 hours later. He was human, maybe 50 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He carried a datapad and looked like he hadn't slept in days. Let me see the data, he said immediately, not bothering with introductions. Commander Raxel handed him everything. Dr. Youngsu spent 20 minutes reading in silence while everyone waited. Finally, he looked up. I need to access the Coalition historical archives, specifically records about the architect species and the fear quantifier's design. Some of those records are restricted, Agent Kathrix said. Then unrestrict them, because I think I know what's happening, and if I'm right, this is much bigger than one broken machine. It took another 3 hours to get the necessary clearances. During that time, Ji-won visited the medical bay. She wasn't supposed to be there. but the guards let her through anyway. She brought food from the cafeteria. "You scared everyone," she said, sitting next to Daehyun. "The entire academy is talking about you. Some cadets think you're dangerous. Others think you're special. What do you think?" Daehyun asked. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. "I think you're different. But not in a bad way. When I was in the machine, I saw myself alone. Completely isolated. All my friends gone. My family dead. My planet destroyed. Just me, floating in empty space forever. It was the worst thing I could imagine. That sounds terrible. It was. But you know what I thought about after?" She looked at him with her strange multi-spectrum eyes. "I thought about how afraid I was. And then I thought about how you must have experienced something so much worse that the machine couldn't even measure it. What kind of fear does that take?" Before Daehyun could answer, Dr. Young-soo called everyone together. He had a large display screen set up, showing ancient documents and diagrams. The fear quantifier, he began, was designed by the architects approximately 3,000 years ago. They created it as a tool to identify potential leaders. The theory was simple. Measure how an individual responds to terror, and you can predict their decision-making under stress. "We know this already," Agent Cathrick said impatiently. "But you don't know this." Dr. Young-soo pulled up a document covered in ancient symbols. The architects calibrated the machine based on species that existed in their time. 23 different species, all extinct now except for the ethereals. These species all evolved on relatively peaceful worlds. He pulled up more data. Yes, they had predators. Yes, they had conflicts, but nothing like Earth. Earth is a Class 4 death world according to Coalition classifications. It has more predator species per square kilometer than any other inhabited planet. It has mass extinction events every few million years. It has diseases, parasites, weather patterns, and geological activity that make it one of the most hostile environments for complex life in the known galaxy. "Get to the point," Commander Raxel said. "The point is that humans didn't evolve to fear death and extinction. We evolved swimming in it. For 200,000 years, humans have faced constant existential threats. Ice ages, droughts, plagues, and then we started threatening ourselves with wars that spanned continents." Dr. Young-soo's voice got quieter. "The machine doesn't measure fear. It measures survival response to existential terror. For most species, there is a breaking point. A moment where the mind shuts down because the threat is too big to process." He looked at Daehyun. "Humans don't have that breaking point in the same way. Our evolution created something unique. When we face existential terror, our minds don't shut down. They accelerate. We start planning, calculating, looking for any possible way to survive." "You're saying humans are immune to fear?" Mirai asked. "No, I'm saying we process it differently. The error occurs because the machine interprets our response as a computational feedback loop. It thinks we're trying to hack it when really we're just doing what evolution taught us to do. Face the void and look for a way through it." The room was silent. Agent Cathrick's exoskeleton clicked nervously. Commander Raxel stared at the human before him with new understanding. "So what do we do?" Raxel asked finally. Dr. Young-soo closed his datapad. "We need to test this theory. But carefully. If I'm right, humans can pass the fear quantifier. We just need to recalibrate it for Earth's evolutionary parameters." "And if you're wrong?" Agent Cathrick asked. "Then humans probably shouldn't be in the Coalition military. Because if our minds genuinely can't be measured by architect technology, we might be too unpredictable to trust." Commander Raxel stood up to his full, impressive height. "I will petition the Coalition Council for permission to conduct a modified test. Cadet Daehyun, you will remain on the Academy under observation. Cadet Mirai, your diplomatic protection is noted, but I strongly suggest you stop hacking intelligence files." Mirai grinned. "No promises, sir." After everyone left except Mirai and Ji-won, Daehyun lay back on the medical bed. "So I either prove that humans can handle the test or I prove that we're too dangerous to be here." "No pressure," Mirai said. But Daehyun was already thinking ahead, planning, calculating odds. It was just what humans did when faced with impossible situations. They found a way forward, or they died trying. 1 week passed before the Coalition Council approved the modified test. It was the longest week of Daehyun's life. He couldn't attend regular classes because of the observation protocols. He couldn't train in the combat simulators. He could only wait in restricted quarters while the entire galaxy debated what to do about him. Mirai visited every day, bringing news from outside. The council is split. Half want to expel all humans from the military. The other half want to study us like lab specimens. She brought him food that wasn't the standard rations. Ambassador Sora arrived from Earth yesterday. She's arguing that the test itself is discriminatory. Is it? Dayan asked. Probably. But we still need to pass it or we'll never be accepted as equals. On the third day, G1 came with a group of non-human cadets. There were 5 of them, representing different species. They all wore armbands with a symbol Dahyun didn't recognize. We formed a support network, Ji-won explained. For you. We don't think what the council is doing is fair. You shouldn't have to prove humanity's worth alone. A draconian cadet named Borum stepped forward. She was smaller than Commander Raxel, but still impressive, with golden scales and sharp eyes. My people have legends, she said quietly. Old stories from before we joined the coalition. About a species that would come from a distant star. A species that frightens death itself. That's just mythology, another cadet said. Maybe. Boram looked at Daehyun. But the legends say this species would teach us that survival is not about being fearless. It is about being afraid and choosing to act anyway. I think those legends were about humans. Daehyun didn't know what to say. He had never thought of himself as special. He was just a kid from Earth who wanted to see the galaxy. On the 5th day, Dr. Youngsu brought news. The fear quantifier has been recalibrated. We've added new parameters based on Earth's evolutionary environment. We've also added monitoring equipment to track every aspect of your neural activity during the test. Will it work? Honestly? I don't know. We're in completely new territory here. Dr. Youngsu sat down heavily. Daehyun, I need you to understand something. If this test fails, it's not your fault. Humans evolved on a world that was trying to kill them every single day for millions of years. We developed coping mechanisms that the rest of the galaxy never needed. That's not a flaw. That's just different. But if I fail, all humans get expelled from the academy. Yes? Then I can't fail. Dr. Youngsu smiled sadly. That's such a human thing to say. On the 7th day, Ambassador Sora visited. She was older, maybe 60, with gray streaks in her black hair and a military bearing that reminded Daehyun of his grandfather. She wore formal diplomatic robes, but underneath he could see the posture of a soldier. Cadet Daehyun, she said formally, then smiled. Actually, forget the formalities. I'm Sora. I used to be in the Earth Space Force before I became a diplomat. I've been fighting the Council all week to stop this test. Why? I want to take it. Because it's not fair. They're not testing other species like this. Just humans. Just us. She sat down across from him. But I understand why you want to do it. You want to prove we belong here, that we're not broken or defective, aren't we? No. Her voice was firm. We're different. There's a distinction. Daehyun, I fought in the Mars Rebellion. I saw things that would break most species in this coalition. My unit held a position for 6 days against impossible odds because retreating meant civilians would die. We were terrified every single second. But we held. She leaned forward. That's what humans do. We get scared and then we do the job anyway. The rest of the galaxy thinks that makes us crazy. Maybe they're right. But crazy is just another word for different when you don't understand it. The day of the second test arrived. The testing hall looked different now. Observation equipment covered every surface. Scientists from a dozen species monitored screens and instruments. In the center, the fear quantifier had been rebuilt. It looked the same but somehow different, as if the ancient crystal now understood what it was about to face. Professor Thalmos was there. He was an ethereal, one of the few species old enough to have existed when the architects were still alive. He looked like smoke given form, constantly shifting and hard to focus on. Young human, he said in a voice like wind through caves. I have studied the architects for 300 years. I thought I understood their technology. You have proven me wrong. That is a rare and interesting gift. Commander Raxel stood at the front of the room with Instructor Velthas. Behind them, the council had sent observers. Agent Kathrix was there, recording everything. Ambassador Sora stood to the side, her diplomatic immunity allowing her to witness what was normally a private test. Cadet Daehyun, Raxel said formally, you have volunteered to undergo a modified fear quantifier test. You understand that failure means expulsion not just for you, but for all human cadets currently enrolled in coalition military training. I understand, sir. You understand that this test may cause psychological damage? I understand, sir. Then proceed. Daehyun walked to the machine. Jiwon and Borum stood together in the observation area. Mirai gave him a small nod. Hyunwoo watched with his scales showing a mixture of colors Daehyun couldn't interpret. The machine opened. This time, Daehyun noticed details he had missed before. The way the crystal reflected light in patterns that seemed almost like language. The way the air inside felt different, charged with something that made his skin tingle. He stepped inside. The petals closed. For a moment, everything was dark. Then the test began, and this time Daehyun was conscious for all of it. First, he saw Earth burning. Not a natural disaster, but war. Nuclear fire consuming every city. He saw his family's home in Seoul melting. He saw his parents dying. The fear hit him like a physical force, trying to make him curl up and shut down. But instead, his mind started calculating. How far from the blast center? Could the subways provide shelter? What supplies would be needed? Even knowing it was just a simulation, his brain refused to give up. It looked for solutions. The scenario shifted. Now he was alone in space. His ship destroyed. His air running out. Darkness in every direction. No hope of rescue. This was Jiwon's fear, the one she had described. Complete isolation. Daehyun's fear response spiked, but again his mind didn't shut down. It inventoried his suit's systems. Calculated oxygen remaining. Looked for any debris that might contain supplies. Planned. Always planning. The scenarios came faster. Humanity extinct. Earth a dead rock. The sun going cold. The galaxy collapsing. Each one worse than the last. Each one designed to break his mind with existential dread. Outside the machine, Dr. Young-soo watched the monitors with growing excitement. His neural patterns are stable. Elevated but stable. The machine isn't seeing an error. It's seeing a response pattern it doesn't recognize. What do the numbers say? Commander Raxel demanded. They're off the scale for normal ranges, but they're not null. They're just different. It's like the machine is measuring a completely different kind of consciousness. Professor Thalmos drifted closer to the machine, his smoky form swirling with interest. Fascinating. The architects designed this to identify leaders, individuals who could face terror and continue functioning. They hypothesized such individuals would be rare, perhaps 1 in a million for any given species. What are you saying? Ambassador Sora asked. I am saying that humans are not producing 1 in a million. Based on the pattern I am seeing, every human may possess this trait to some degree. It is not that humans are fearless. It is that human fear is fundamentally connected to problem-solving in a way the architects never encountered. Inside the machine, the final scenario began. Heat death of the universe. Everything ending. All stars cold. All life extinct. Absolute eternal void. Nothing remaining. Nothing possible. Just endless darkness forever. This was the scenario that no cadet had ever reached. The final test of existential terror. Daehyun experienced it fully. The complete and utter end of everything. No hope, no future, no meaning. Just void. His fear response hit maximum levels. Every system in his body screamed danger. His heart raced. His breathing became rapid. Sweat poured down his face, but his mind didn't break. Instead, in that moment of ultimate terror, Daehyun had a strange thought. Even if everything ends, we exist now. Even if it's temporary, it matters now. And if there's time between now and the end, there's time to do something meaningful. It was a human thought, uniquely impossibly human, to face the end of everything and still find purpose in the present moment. The machine registered the response and, for the first time in 300 years, learned something new about consciousness. The crystal petals opened. Daehyun stepped out. He was shaking, covered in sweat, but his eyes were clear. He was afraid, but he was functional. Dr. Young-soo checked his monitors and laughed. He passed. The score is bizarre and completely outside normal parameters, but he passed. The machine registered him as functional under maximum existential stress. Commander Raxel looked at the human cadet who had just faced the void and walked back out. What was the score? 1,700 units. More than any species has ever recorded. But more importantly, his cognitive function remained active throughout. The machine categorizes him as a viable leader under extreme conditions. Chaos filled the academy within minutes of the alarm starting. Cadets ran through corridors in panic. Some species had never experienced real combat. Their training was theoretical, meant to prepare them for leadership positions in peacetime. The Scourge changed all that. Daehyun followed Commander Raxel to the command center along with Ambassador Sora and the senior staff. Through the massive view screen, they could see the approaching ships. They looked like predators, all sharp angles and weapon ports. The Scourge were expelled from the Coalition 40 years ago, Instructor Veltas explained rapidly. War crimes, civilian massacres. They've been hiding in deep space ever since. Why attack now? Agent Kathrix clicked nervously. Why here? Because we're vulnerable, Ambassador Sora said quietly. She was looking at a tactical display. This is a training facility, not a military base. Minimal weapons, minimal shields. And right now, we're full of cadets from every major species in the Coalition. Hostages, Raxel growled. They want hostages. Security Chief Vorn entered the room. He was reptilian, covered in scales that provided natural armor. Commander, transport ships are preparing for launch, but we need at least 30 minutes. The Scourge will be here in 20. Then we buy time. Raxel pulled up defensive positions on the display. Activate all weapon systems. Deploy defensive drones. Send a distress signal to the nearest Coalition fleet. The nearest fleet is 6 hours away, sir, Vorn said. Everyone in the room understood what that meant. They were alone. Daehyun watched the preparations with a strange calm settling over him. He had just faced the end of the universe in simulation. Real danger felt almost simple by comparison. His mind was already working through the problem. Insufficient firepower, limited time, enemies seeking hostages, not destruction. Commander, Daehyun said. Permission to speak? Not now, Cadet. Sir, they want hostages alive. That's an advantage. They have to board us rather than just destroy the station from orbit. Raxel turned to look at him. And your point? My point is that boarding actions are close-quarters combat. Numbers matter less in narrow corridors. If we can force them to fight for every section, we can buy more time for evacuation. Ambassador Sora looked at Daehyun with recognition in her eyes. He's right. We don't need to win. We just need to not lose for 30 minutes. The instructors can hold defensive positions, Velthas said, but the cadets are untrained for real combat. Most cadets, Mirai said from the doorway. She had followed them, despite orders to evacuate. With her were 4 other humans. 3 cadets Daehyun had never met and one he recognized as Taeyang, a first-year student. Humans train for combat from childhood. Sports, games, even our entertainment is all about conflict simulation. Commander Raxel's scales shifted color with irritation. This is not a game, Cadet. No, sir, Taeyang said. He was young, maybe 19, with burn scars on his arms. But my family fought in the Mars Rebellion. I grew up learning tactics. So did half the humans on this station. We're not soldiers yet, but we understand warfare better than you think. The Scourge ships entered weapons range. The station's shields flared as the first shots hit. Energy weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. They wanted the station intact. They're launching boarding craft, Vorn reported. Estimate 40 attack teams. 200 fighters total. Against them, the Academy had 30 instructors trained for combat and about 300 cadets, most of whom had never fired a weapon outside of simulation. Deploy instructors to key positions, Raxel ordered. Cadets will remain in secured areas. Commander, request permission to coordinate human cadets for asymmetric defense, Ambassador Sora said. When Raxel hesitated, she continued, I was a military officer before becoming a diplomat. Trust me on this. Raxel looked between the ambassador and the small group of humans. They stood differently than the other species. Alert but not panicking. Scared but functional, just like Daehyun in the fear quantifier. You have authorization, Raxel said. But if you get my cadets killed, Ambassador, there will be consequences. Understood, sir. Ambassador Sora immediately took command of the 5 human cadets. They moved to a side room where she pulled up tactical maps. The Scourge will breach here, here, and here. She pointed to weak points in the station's hull. Standard boarding doctrine. They'll try to control main corridors and push toward command. So we don't fight them in the main corridors, Daehyun said, understanding immediately. Exactly. We use maintenance tunnels, air ducts, service passages. We hit them from unexpected angles and fall back before they can bring superior numbers to bear. Sora looked at each of them. This is guerrilla warfare. Earth invented it. Time to teach the galaxy how it works, Mirai grinned. Finally something we're good at. They spent 10 minutes preparing. The humans moved through the station like they owned it. setting up ambush points, identifying escape routes, placing improvised obstacles. Other cadets watched in confusion as the humans turned the academy into a maze. Jiwan found Daehyun in a maintenance corridor. "What are you doing?" "Setting up a trap. When the Scourge come through the main corridor, we'll force them into this maintenance tunnel. It's narrow. Only 2 can fit through at a time. Numbers don't matter there." "That's clever." She paused. "I want to help." "Jiwan, you don't have to." "I know. But you passed the test. You proved humans belong here. Now let me prove that the coalition is worth belonging to." She picked up a piece of equipment. "Show me what to do." Borum joined them next, along with 3 other non-human cadets. Word was spreading. The humans weren't running. They were fighting smart. And that inspired others. The first boarding craft hit the station's hull with explosive charges. Scourge warriors poured through the breaches. They were armored, heavily armed, and experienced in combat. They expected terrified cadets and overwhelmed instructors. Instead, they found an empty corridor. "No targets. No resistance. Advance," ordered the Scourge team leader. His warriors moved forward in formation, weapons ready. They made it 20 meters before the maintenance panel exploded. Taeyang emerged from the wall behind them with a captured plasma rifle and fired 3 shots before disappearing back into the walls. 2 Scourge warriors fell. The rest turned to pursue into the maintenance tunnel, but it was a maze in there. The humans knew every turn. The Scourge didn't. In the command center, Security Chief Vorn watched the tactical display with confusion. "The boarding teams are stalling. They should have reached command by now." "What's stopping them?" Raxel demanded. "Unknown, sir. They keep getting ambushed by small groups and losing men to traps." On the view screen, they watched as a Scourge team tried to breach the cafeteria. The doors opened, and instead of fleeing cadets, they found tables arranged as barricades and humans with improvised weapons. The Scourge had numbers and firepower, but the humans had turned the environment into a weapon. Ambassador Sora moved between positions, coordinating the defense with military precision. "Team 2, fall back to position Gamma. Team 4, flank through the eastern passage. Remember, we're not trying to kill them all, just slow them down." Daehyun found himself in a firefight in the dormitory section. A Scourge squad had cornered a group of younger cadets. Hyunwoo was there, his scales bright white with fear, trying to shield the younger students with his body. Daehyun didn't think. He just acted. Grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and threw it into the corridor. Shot it with a plasma pistol. The explosion of foam and smoke blinded the Scourge warriors for 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough. Daehyun pulled the cadets into a side room and barricaded the door. "Stay here. Don't open this for anyone except Coalition personnel." Hyunwoo stared at him. "You just saved my life." "That's what squad mates do." Daehyun smiled. "Besides, I need you alive to beat me in combat training next semester." For 25 minutes, the battle raged through the academy. The instructors held the main defensive positions. The humans ran interference, appearing where they weren't expected and vanishing before the enemy could retaliate. Other cadets learned quickly, copying the tactics, but the Scourge were adapting. They stopped charging blindly and started using heavier weapons. They began systematically sealing off sections of the station, cutting the defenders into isolated pockets. In the command center, Dr. Youngsu burst through the doors, out of breath. "Commander, I found something in the archives. The architects left a weapon system in the lower levels of the station." "A weapon?" Raxel turned. "What kind of weapon?" Professor Thalmos materialized beside Dr. Youngsu. His smoky form was agitated. "It is called the Terminus Array, designed for planetary defense. It was installed 300 years ago but never activated." "Why not?" Agent Kathrix asked. "Because," Thalmos said quietly, "it requires a direct neural link with an operator. The weapon system deliberately induces maximum terror in the operator as a safety mechanism. The architects believed only someone who could maintain rational thought under absolute existential dread should control such power." Everyone looked at each other with the same realization. Ambassador Sora closed her eyes. "But a human might be able to use it." "A human who just passed the fear quantifier at 1700 units, Dr. Youngsu said. "Lu." The lower levels of the academy were ancient. The walls here predated the coalition itself, built by the architects in an era when the galaxy was younger. Emergency lights flickered as Daehyun, Dr. Youngsu, and Professor Thalmos descended through levels that hadn't been accessed in decades. The terminus array was designed as a final defense, Professor Thalmos explained as they ran. His smoky form moved ahead, lighting the way through dark corridors. The architects believed that the power to destroy entire fleets should be restricted to those who could bear the psychological weight of such responsibility. They reached a massive door, covered in the same symbols that had appeared on the fear quantifier during Daehyun's test. Professor Thalmos touched the surface and the door opened like liquid metal flowing aside. Inside was a chamber that took Daehyun's breath away. The terminus array stood in the center, a crystal sphere suspended in the air by forces he couldn't identify. It pulsed with the same blue light as the fear quantifier, but darker, deeper. Around it, ancient machinery hummed with power that had been waiting 3 centuries for someone capable of using it. "How do I connect to it?" Daehyun asked. Dr. Youngsu pointed to a platform beneath the sphere. "You stand there. The neural interface will activate automatically. But Daehyun, you need to understand what you're about to face. This isn't like the fear quantifier. That was designed to measure your fear. This is designed to use it, to make you so terrified that only absolute necessity would justify firing the weapon." The architects called it the test of leadership, Thalmos added. The belief was that anyone who could maintain control while experiencing ultimate terror would also have the wisdom to use such power only when no other option existed. Above them, the station shook as another explosion rocked the upper levels. Time was running out. Daehyun stepped onto the platform. The moment his feet touched the surface, the world changed. The neural interface connected to his mind faster than thought, and the terror began. It was nothing like the fear quantifier. That had shown him scenarios, images, possibilities. The terminus array was different. It showed him responsibility. It showed him every life on the station. All 300 cadets, all 30 instructors, Ambassador Sora, Mireille, Ji-won, Borum, even Hyunwoo. He felt their fear, their pain, their hope that someone would save them. Then it showed him the weapon's power. Enough energy to vaporize the Scourge fleet, enough destruction to crack planets. And he was in control of it all. One thought, one command, and he could end everything. The terror was absolute. Not fear of death, but fear of responsibility. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear that he wasn't worthy of this power. Fear that using it would change him forever. His heart rate spiked to dangerous levels. Sweat poured down his face. Every instinct screamed at him to disconnect, to run, to let someone else bear this burden. But Dr. Youngsu's voice cut through the terror. "Daehyun, the Scourge are breaching the command center. If you can't do this, everyone dies in the next 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 180 seconds. That was all the time he had to decide if he could bear this weight. In that moment, Daehyun did something that surprised even him. He hesitated, despite the terror, despite the time pressure, despite everyone's lives hanging in the balance. He took 3 full seconds to think, is there another way? Is there a solution that doesn't require me to use this power? Professor Thalmos, monitoring from outside the platform, made a sound of pure shock. Impossible. He's resisting the fear long enough to consider alternatives. No species has ever done that. They either break or fire immediately. That's very human, Dr. Youngsu said quietly. Daehyun searched his mind for another option. Could they negotiate? No, the Scourge had come for hostages. Could they hold out longer? No, the defenses were failing. Could someone else use the weapon? No, they would break under the terror. There was no other way. Having confirmed this, having checked every possibility, Daehyun made his decision. He connected fully with the terminus array and felt its vast power flow through his consciousness. Above the academy, the Scourge fleet was preparing for final assault. Warlord Kresh, their commander, watched the station's defenses crumble with satisfaction. Soon they would have hostages from every major coalition species. The ransom would be enormous. All ships prepare to, he started to order. Then every system on his ship went dead. Not destroyed, just offline. Weapons, engines, life support, everything. On every Scourge ship, the same thing happened simultaneously. 20 warships became nothing more than floating metal coffins drifting in space without power. But they weren't destroyed. Their crews were alive. Terrified, but alive. In the terminus array chamber, Daehyun had done something no one expected. He had used the planet-killing weapon with surgical precision. Not to destroy, but to disable. He had given the enemy a choice. Retreat or suffocate when their backup life support ran out in 1 hour. Warlord Kresh stared at his dead controls. He had been a warrior for 40 years. He had faced enemy fleets and won, but he had never encountered an enemy who had the power to destroy him completely and chose mercy instead. It was more terrifying than any weapon. Emergency power to engines only, Kresh ordered. We retreat. Now. The Scourge fleet limped away into deep space, dragging their wounded pride with them. In the command center, Commander Raxel watched the impossible happen. The enemy was retreating, the station was saved, and somehow Daehyun had used an architect superweapon without destroying anything. How? Raxel asked simply. Professor Thalmos was quiet for a long moment. Because he is human, he faced ultimate terror and ultimate power simultaneously, and still took the time to make the right choice rather than the easy choice. The architects searched for 10,000 years for a species capable of that. They thought they failed. Below, Daehyun disconnected from the terminus array. He collapsed immediately. Ambassador Sora and Mirai caught him before he hit the ground. Is he alive? Mirai demanded. Dr. Youngsu checked his vital signs. Barely, his mind is intact, but the stress was enormous. He needs medical attention. As they carried him to the medical bay, Daehyun's eyes opened briefly. Did everyone survive? He whispered. Yes, Ambassador Sora said. Everyone. Because of you. Good. His eyes closed again. That's what matters. 6 hours later, coalition reinforcements arrived, led by Elder Nix, an Aquilon council member. By then, the academy had been secured, casualties treated, and damage assessed. 0 deaths. Minimal permanent injuries. It was the most successful defensive action in coalition history, achieved by undertrained cadets and one human who refused to break. Elder Nix called an emergency meeting of all senior staff. With remote attendance from council members across the galaxy, the debate was fierce. Humans are clearly dangerous, one council member argued. They can use architect weapons that no other species can access. This makes them a threat to galactic stability. Or, Elder Nix countered, it makes them exactly what the architects were searching for. Leaders who can shoulder impossible burdens. The human hesitated before using the weapon, another council member said. In a crisis, hesitation causes death. He didn't hesitate out of fear, Professor Thalmos explained. He hesitated to ensure there was no better option. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. And it is precisely what the architects designed the weapon to test for. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Ambassador Sora stood to speak. Members of the Council, she said formally, humanity acknowledges that we are different. Our evolution on Earth created psychological patterns that the rest of the galaxy finds unusual. But we are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for the chance to prove that different is not the same as dangerous. You've already proven dangerous, someone said. Your cadet used a weapon that could destroy planets, and chose not to. Ambassador Sora's voice was firm. That is the point. Humans do not lack fear. We simply learned long ago that fear without action is useless, and action without thought is reckless. We think, then act. Even when terrified, Elder Nix made a decision. I propose a compromise. Humans will be integrated into the coalition military. However, they will serve as specialized instructors in what we will call adversity training. They will teach other species how to function under extreme stress. They will be wardens, those who help others survive impossible situations. The vote was close, but the proposal passed. 3 months later, Daehyun stood at his graduation ceremony. He wore the uniform of a coalition officer with a new insignia, the symbol of the Warden Corps. Around him stood Mirai, and the other human cadets who had fought in the battle. They were the first class of a new program, but they weren't alone. Jiwon had volunteered to cross-train with the wardens. So had Borum. Even Hyunwoo had applied, though he complained constantly about the training difficulty. This is harder than I thought it would be, Hyunwoo admitted during a break. You humans make it look easy. It's not easy, Daehyun said. We're just used to being uncomfortable. Jiwon laughed. Is that what you call facing the end of the universe? Uncomfortable? What else would you call it? Daehyun smiled. The alternative is giving up. And humans don't really know how to do that.